Responsibility. Responsibility. What do you think of? What do you think of when you think of that word? Because how you interpret that word can, in large part, determine the course of your life. It can determine the course of at least a season. It can determine the course of a day. But you add all that up, and you get a life. Now, there's um, there's a couple of different ways to have a relationship with that word, and that is where we have and somebody may not even feel this emotionally, but in reality, they have a what I'm going to call a negative valence personally to the word responsibility. And what I mean by that, it's a chemical term. It's kind of like the nature of our stance and is it positive or negative towards something. And some people, when things happen, the responsibility, the term responsibility, the concept responsibility, or the reality of responsibility of in that situation, who's responsible? It's always someone else. It's external. Well, if you wouldn't do this, then I wouldn't be. Well, you make me so mad. Well, you're, you, and it's always, everything from the weather to sometimes it's God, sometimes it's, parents, sometimes it's as adults failing to differentiate between parents and God. But there's always somebody else that is kind of like responsible for either making my situation better or they're responsible for making it bad. They're the ones that are causing it. Okay, that's one stance we can have towards the word. Another stance we can have towards the word is a positive stance, but it has to do with, for lack of a better word, it has to do with duty. Like, well, I'm responsible to do something. Okay. And sometimes people are very responsible people, but the responsibility is usually externally defined. Like they're very good at meeting the responsibilities of their job or the responsibilities of whatever is outlined that calls them to be dutifully obedient and dutifully responsible. And those are really, really, really great people. Very important. But there's a third level that's a higher level. And that is when we see being responsible as not only being responsible to our duties that we have signed up for, but we are taking ownership for our entire existence. Let me say that again. It's where we're taking ownership for our entire existence. Because what that does is that transcends the problem of who's to blame, who's at fault, all of that kind of stuff that sometimes can keep people stuck for years and years and years. And the way that responsible people at the third level tend to view responsibility is basically, how about the just a little play on words you hear? The responsibility is the ability to respond. The ability to respond. Now just play with that for a second. See, if I'm in a relationship and somebody's being an idiot, hurtful in some way, or controlling or manipulative, I'm not responsible for their behavior. Okay. They are. But if I see myself as taking ownership of my life, I am the one that finds myself in this situation with them. And that is not their problem. That's my problem. My life is my problem. That's ownership. Whoever causes it, we can argue about that in court if you want to, or other places. But I'm the one that's got to take ownership of my life because no matter what anybody else is doing, I am responsible for responding to that reality. And the most successful people in lives live at that third level of responsibility. It's called existential responsibility. If you go back to reading all the great existential philosophers, there was a whole, there are different categories. you know, of all sorts of really interesting stuff, which to me are so important as part of our faith. But one of them is this dual component that are like different sides of the same coin, which we all want. And you know what the coin is? It's the freedom responsibility coin. There are two sides to the same coin. See, if I want to be free and I'm interacting with a controlling person and I want to be free, then I'm going to be free to the extent that I take responsibility for my allowing myself to be controlled. And if I do that, I'm going to be free because I have choices. Freedom, responsibility, ownership, choice. If we find ourselves in a, in a company or working for something we don't like, you see some people who kind of grin and bear that, or can't, what, lots of different things. And I'm not talking about in situations where we really, really, really have limited choices. But you see other people take ownership of, this is my life. If I don't like this, what do I need to do? Maybe they go pursue another degree online, or maybe they develop some other skills, or they extend their network. But they take action because they want to be free and not controlled by that situation. That's responsibility at the highest level. And talk about faith for a second. This is the, I mean, it's almost, I understand that love is the theme throughout the Bible. It is the theme of our faith. God is love. For God so loved the world. But one of my favorite verses, Galatians 5:1, says, it is for freedom that Christ has died. And it says, don't ever be subject to a yoke of slavery ever again. And see, the whole thing there is that from, you go way back to the very beginning of our faith, and what does God do? He says, look, it's up to you guys. What do you want to do? You want to live? Go down this path. You want to die? Go down that path. You are 100% free to make your own choice. What do you want to do? Take ownership for your life. Do you want to pursue things that lead to death of life, or do you want to pursue things that lead to life, more life? Same thing you do with a kid, you know? Okay, buddy, it's up to you. You put your toy in the hamper, then you're free to play for 30 more minutes. You throw your toy at the dog, then you go to, toddler purgatory. It's up to you. All I do is call the balls and the strikes, right? Freedom, responsibility, ownership. So the question becomes each and every day, what do I want for my life? And what choices and options am I not seeing that are available to me that I am free to choose to take to make it better? That's a good way to think about responsibility. Sometimes when I love it when people get the lights go on and they realize, wait a minute, even with this dysfunctional person, I'm free. I'm free to not be pulled down by them. I'm free to operate at a higher level, which oftentimes redeems the relationship and turns it around. Freedom is a big deal, guys. Let's embrace it.